Naruto as a franchise is one of the most popular anime in the history of, well, anime. It isn't your typical shonen that comes and goes. I'd argue that Naruto is somewhat timeless in its effect and popularity, but it's also due to that popularity why Naruto's character didn't evolve in the way that he could have. And just to clarify, this isn't about Naruto's development as it pertains to his ideology or personal beliefs. This is more so about what the character was able to accomplish as it pertains to his abilities.
Cause people called me a failure! I'll prove them wrong!
You see, shonen main characters suffer from a certain trope, which forces them to use a certain move ad nauseum. They might be allowed to deviate from that track from time to time, but it all goes back to that signature move over and over again. Whether it's Luffy's Gum Gum Pistol, Ichigo's Getsuga Tensho, or Naruto's Rasengan. Some of these abilities even become motifs in a sense, with a deep symbolic meaning behind it. For example, Naruto's Shadow Clone Jutsu, which Sasuke said is a symbol of his weakness. It's a jutsu that covers up his loneliness. Now of course, one could simply chalk this up to a bit of banter from Sasuke, but given Naruto's reaction, there might be a bit of truth to it. Kishimoto simply used Sasuke as a vehicle to plant that seed in the mind of the audience, which would then retroactively change how one views Naruto's repeated usage of the Shadow Clone Jutsu. This is one way in which a deeper meaning can be attributed to a character's repeated usage of a certain ability, but that isn't the case most of the time. Take Naruto's Rasengan for example. There isn't any deep symbolic meaning behind it or why he uses it. He simply learned the ability because he wanted something similar to Sasuke's Chidori, and later formed the Rasen Shuriken because he wanted something stronger to take on Sasuke. You could say there's some thematic value to the Rasen Shuriken as it pertains to Minato not being able to complete it, but that wasn't really what drove Naruto to do it. That was more so a side achievement. So Naruto's usage of the Rasengan, unlike the Shadow Clone Jutsu, was more superficial. They needed something flashy and recognizable, something that people would remember and subconsciously assign to the identity of the character itself. In truth, that is actually the reason behind this trope of characters spamming the same ability over and over again. It's psychology. Humans recognize patterns and are more drawn to things they know. It's easier for them to understand. This of course makes the character more marketable and lends to its popularity. I mean, a random guy went viral and gained international attention simply because he did the Naruto run in front of a news camera. That is a byproduct of Naruto's popularity and the many signature moves he was able to produce, but there's also a downside to that fame as well. You see, this want or need to build a sense of familiarity or simplicity for shonen main characters often limits the characters as well. They don't get the chance to be creative or diverse for the most part, and would instead gain a stronger version of the ability they were initially given. And in some cases, this makes sense. Take Asta for example. He doesn't have the ability to use magic, which is literally the power system of his universe. It makes sense why he's somewhat limited in what he's able to do. But in Naruto's case, it's a bit more arbitrary. For example, Naruto's moveset could have and should have been way more extensive than it was. And that's because Naruto is a literal walk-in cheat code. You see, Naruto has an ability called the Shadow Clone Jutsu. This ability pretty much creates a copy of the user that has substance, to the point of possessing bones, blood, and even equivalent chakra to the original. The clones are also equal in strength to Naruto himself, and just as fast as well, since they retain the physical stats of the original. That in and of itself makes this jutsu beyond broken, but there's also something else built into it that makes it even crazier. You see, back in chapter 319, while trying to master wind chakra, Kakashi suggested creating more shadow clones to speed up the process. That's because the shadow clone jutsu also have a function which allows them to send a current experience back to the caster. So if Naruto and his clones perform the same training exercise for the same amount of time, that would reduce his training time proportional to the amount of clones he created. That means one clone would halve the training time and two clones would only take a third of the time, etc, etc. That is why Naruto was able to apply his wind nature to the Rasengan in just a few days, when Minato wasn't able to do it after trying for years. The same Minato who's considered a super genius and one of the true prodigies in the series, who created the Rasengan itself. Yet his son, who's considered to be a dunce, mastered something he wasn't able to. Why is that? Well, as I pointed out, Naruto is a walking cheat code, a machine primed to acquire any teachable technique. And this isn't just due to the perk of the Shadow Clone to reduce training times, but also due to Naruto's immense chakra pool. As pointed out by Kakashi, he himself isn't able to exploit the Shadow Clone training like Naruto does. While he can use the Shadow Clone Jutsu just like Naruto, he isn't able to maintain them long enough because he simply doesn't have the kind of power Naruto does. He doesn't have a lot of chakra. So not only does he not have the amount of chakra needed to create the amount of clones Naruto does, he wouldn't be able to maintain them even if he did, because clones need a constant stream of chakra to remain active. So Kakashi, just like 98% of characters in the verse, would never be able to take advantage of this method like Naruto could, which is what makes him so special. That is why it was so surprising to me that after learning the Rasen Shuriken using this training method, he never does it again. I kid you not, Naruto never again uses this overpowered training method that allows him to learn abilities in 1/100th of the time it would take anyone else to learn it. We went through the entire story from the moment he created Rasen Shuriken without Naruto ever doing this again, while Sasuke on the other hand was going around collecting abilities like Pokemon. And as I said, I totally understand the argument from a marketability and simplicity standpoint, and wanting to not make your main character too powerful. All of those things are very good points to varying extent, to be honest, but it has to also make sense in universe as well. This is not a case where the character simply isn't able to learn new abilities based on some established mechanic. Naruto is able to learn any jutsu in this universe once it isn't a Keke Genkai, Keke Tota, or Keke Mora. I mean, you expect me to believe that Naruto wouldn't be able to learn FTG, Flying Thunder God, even though he learned the Rasengan faster than Minato did and was able to apply his nature element to it while Minato couldn't after trying for many years. It is obviously the case that adding his nature element to the Rasengan was way more difficult than using Flying Thunder God, so why would Naruto fail at using FTG when he completed something even more difficult? That doesn't make sense. And look, to some extent, you could explain why Naruto never learned FTG after the Pain Arc, since there wasn't anyone there to teach him. Minato and Tobirama were both deceased and he didn't have any connection to Minato's minions who also knew the jutsu. It is even possible that he wasn't aware of the fact that they knew the formula, but that argument becomes a bit flimsy after he literally saw them use it in the war to teleport the Mitsukage. And I know some will argue that, well kiddo, FTG isn't the only teleportation jutsu, so maybe Naruto thought it was something else. And to that I say it doesn't matter, whether it's FTG or instant transmission. He now knows that they possess a jutsu that can help him teleport to different locations. This of course is way more important in the context of the story post-Shippuden, since these guys now know of other dimensions and time spaces. In fact, during the Boruto section of the story, they are actively anticipating the arrival of threats greater than Kaguya based on information found in the scroll. That is why Sasuke is actively traveling across Kaguya's dimensions to gather information and prepare for the incoming threat. Then you get to Naruto, and what exactly is he doing? Absolutely nothing. I mean, he's running the village of course, but he isn't doing anything at all to prepare himself for battle. To the point that Kurama calls him rusty because he hasn't been doing anything for the past few years. And this, by the way, isn't a phantom critique. The story itself acknowledges that Naruto isn't properly balancing his duties as the Hokage to his family and to his own body, which of course is a very human thing to do. But that doesn't change the fact that this is Naruto wasting his potential, which is the title of the video. The same way you would say that to anyone else that you know have a higher peak than what they're currently reaching. You think that after the war he would have had Genma, which is the guy that knows how to use FTG, teach him FTG in preparation for the otherworldly threats that can trap him in other dimensions. I mean, the guy was right there at Kakashi's inauguration, so you had access to him. You'd also think that he would have wanted to have a jutsu that can help him get to Sasuke since he's sending him on missions to unknown dimensions. What if something happens to Sasuke and they never hear from him again? I don't know, a jutsu that allows him to place his chakra on an object or on Sasuke himself, which would allow him to teleport to him anywhere he is in the universe, would come in handy, I guess. You'd also think that after Jigen left him in that dimension and Sasuke turned up just in time to save him, he would have thought that, you know, maybe I need a teleportation jutsu of my own so I'm not placed in this position again. And by the way, they were placed in that position again after Momoshiki destroyed Sasuke's Renegon, so there you go. Mind you, Naruto as the Hokage has access to all the jutsus in the entire village, even the forbidden ones, and never attempts to learn a single one of them. He didn't learn to open the 8 gates, which I assume would be 100 times easier with his Shadow Clone cheat code, which is crazy since he was able to contend with Jubidara. Just imagine Naruto stacking 8 gates onto his existing power. This guy would have been a beast. But no, of course, he didn't care to do it, just like how he didn't care to learn FTG or any sealing techniques, despite knowing that some of these aliens might need to be sealed away. He would much rather go into battle unprepared, throwing Rasengans and punches, even when they're clearly not working. That is precisely what happened when Ishiki arrived in the village, by the way. All they had were hopes and wishes. No emergency techniques or sealing jutsu they've been working on this entire time for this exact situation, despite knowing that other threats greater than Kage were heading towards the planet. They did nothing to prepare for this. Kishimoto and Ikimoto really had my goat stepping out there in his prime, with his only improvement being a bigger Rasengan. Bro didn't refine any of his techniques in his years leading up to being the Hokage or afterwards. He didn't master any more chakra natures, didn't create a new type of Rasengan, didn't add BBLs to the sexy jutsu. Like, bro did literally nothing. In fact, going into his prime, Naruto lost abilities instead. He no longer has TSO, True Seeking Orbs, which literally has the ability to use every chakra nature, including the special ones such as Explosion Release and Dust Release, which erases anything it touches. He also doesn't use Boil Release anymore, which boosted his stats to the point that he could easily overpower Kage at full strike. He doesn't have the ability to levitate, can't restore organs or life anymore since he lost the Yang Seal. Like, bro literally got debuffed in terms of abilities but got a boost in physical stats instead. There's also the issue of him having Hashirama cells, which is the hand that is in bandages. Naruto is the only character in his own story in the history of the franchise that was compatible with Hashirama cells but didn't gain the ability to use Wood Release. Yes, the guy who's Hashirama's next life and literal blood descendant is the only person who received his cells and didn't gain his abilities, aside from Sasuke, but that's for a different video. Okay, we'll get to that one. The point is that every person who got a literal attachment of this guy gained the ability to use Wood Release. Madara did, Obito did, Yamato did, and even Orochimaru himself after taking over the body of a white Zetsu. Yet Naruto for some reason didn't. Now, one could argue that maybe the way his Hashirama cell hand functions simply doesn't allow for him to gain abilities from it, and to that I say you might be correct, but it doesn't change the fact that they made it that way, which again goes to my argument about his wasted potential. Now, I want to be fair and say that Naruto learned the error of his ways and started training again after the Momoshiki attack, which almost destroyed the village. He doesn't actually train himself, he's more so trying to get the people around him to be stronger. So this again doesn't address the issue of him wasting his potential by not using the cheat code Kakashi taught him years prior. And the saddest thing about it is that he doesn't have that cheat code anymore. Yes, after losing Kurama, Naruto no longer has the ability to make use of this mechanic like he once did. That is because he doesn't have the chakra quantity that he once possessed. I addressed all this in my video about how strong Naruto currently is without Kurama, so you guys can go watch that one after this one. But the main point is that Naruto's boosted stamina, which is responsible for the production of chakra, came from Kurama. His immense chakra pool was also a thing because the seal allowed the Nine-Tails chakra to leak out into his own chakra pool. This was outright stated by the Toad Sages and Naruto himself. This wasn't because of his Uzumaki blood, and this was again confirmed in chapter 670 with Hagoromo stating that Naruto didn't inherit any of his parents' natural abilities. You can see that in the fact that he couldn't handle the full Nine-Tails, which is why Minato took half of it with him to death. You can also see it in the fact that Naruto immediately went comatose when the Nine-Tails was extracted, while Kushina was totally fine and strong enough to run and even hold down the Nine-Tails. This of course makes sense since Kushina is a pure-blooded Uzumaki while Naruto is a half-breed, thus the blonde hair, and half-breeds sometimes don't inherit the specific trait of the bloodline. That's also why I didn't really knock him for not really being a sealing jutsu pro, which is what the Uzumaki are known for, because he simply didn't inherit that proficiency. Ironically, him being a half-blood is also another way in which his potential was wasted, but Minato being his father is also cool, so who cares? The main point is that he doesn't have the massive chakra reserves he once had, which means he can't produce the amount of shadow clones he once did, nor can he maintain them as long as he did. Now Naruto does have enough chakra to enter Sage mode similar to Minato and Jiraiya, which means his chakra amount is at least above average, but it isn't anywhere close to what it was when he had Kurama. Put it this way, it's like when you have a cup that is empty. Let's say this is where the chakra is kept when it's produced. Naruto would pour his own chakra into that cup, which is produced by stamina. The Nine-Tails chakra would also leak into that cup and merge with Naruto's chakra, greatly expanding the amount of chakra he possesses. When Naruto then expounds chakra to use a jutsu or powers techniques, both the chakra that he produced and the chakra that leaked from the Nine-Tails into his chakra pool gets consumed, which is why he runs out of chakra and this process needs to happen again. The problem now, of course, is that Naruto no longer has the Nine-Tails to leak more chakra into his chakra pool, which means all he has is the amount of chakra he's able to produce. That is why Sakura says in anime that he doesn't have superhuman chakra anymore and he can't use jutsu like he used to. This would simply mean that Naruto really can't take advantage of the Shadow Clone training technique like he could have in the past. He can likely still create multiple Shadow Clones to reduce his training time, but not anywhere near to the extent that he once could. Like, I want you guys to understand that the training method was so effective that he mastered something that it normally takes someone over a decade to grasp in just 2 days. And this was without the full cooperation of the Nine-Tails. Just imagine if Hokage Naruto with both halves of Kurama spawned like 4,000 clones and went to work. This man would be unbeatable. But alas, Kishimoto just disregarded this overpowered training method immediately after the arc in which it was introduced, which is just unfortunate. With that said, that's it for the video. Let me know your thoughts down below. I wanted to get this off my chest for a very long time, so here we are. And also, if you guys want to know about the chakra paradox in Naruto, check out this video on screen. But if you guys would much rather learn about why Naruto's shadow clones made him weaker, check out this one instead. But yeah, see you guys soon. Peace.